I love turning resin. It's I started turning about 4 years ago, and I've probably been turning resin 3.5 of it. So there's just so much you can do with it. And I don't know if I've pushed the limits of it, but I've failed many times. But I've done some really nice stuff. Some people are looking at the items that I just brought in for show and tell, and they all have a different way of molding. The bulk of my time talking to you guys is really I'm just going to be talking. I have basically 3 different kinds of molds that I use. Well, let me back up. Tell you where I started. So I started about 4 years ago. I went to school for mechanical engineering in the 90s. Graduated college and got some jobs as I worked designing helicopter parts, dog bones, lighting fixtures. Later in life, I went and got a degree in culinary just because I enjoyed cooking.
Pull your mic a little closer to your face.
Is that better?
Better, yeah.
I can hear myself now. So, like I said, I started training about 4 years ago, and then the greatest thing that ever happened to me about 2 years ago is I got fired from my job, and I just love training so much that I decided not to go back to the corporate world, and I train 6 to 8 hours every day. It's my full-time job, and I go to markets every weekend. So, but it's so much fun. Yeah, sometimes you're really blessed about what happens in life. So, but anyway, that's my story. So, I brought a couple items, more than a few items here, to show you how basically you get to turn. Like I said, there are 3 different molding techniques that I use. I use hard tooling, hard molding, soft molding, and disposable molding. The easiest thing to get to molding is hard molding. And basically, all that is a cup. I mean, there's like this one here. This is an ice cream tub. This is a 2.5 gallon bucket from Home Depot. You go to you start looking in the dollar stores. Oh, that's a nice little small bucket. I can make something out of that. And then you start realizing that I really don't have to spend money. I could just buy stuff that I like that comes into in a nice container. I love eating pretzels. Well, I love eating in general, but that's a different story. I enjoy pretzels. So if you go to Aldi, they sell the pretzel rods in these big plastic containers. I'm like, ooh, that's a good mold. So I eat pretzels, so I can have a mold for it. Yeah, I mean, 1/2-gallon milk containers, great mold. So lots of disposable stuff. Well, like I said, I mean, this is ice cream. And it's a perfect size bowl for me. For a lot of people, if you really enjoy this size. But there's a lot of things that you can do with where is that piece?
And anything you hold up, if you're standing on the mat, they can probably see you.
Okay. Oh, there it is. So the greatest thing about is you can put stuff in there however you want it, glue it down, and it'll just stay there. So you can really make a real sort of pattern of it. So I mean, this is one of the glue ups that I did. For it. Where are we? So I mean, it's just a lot of medallion planks that are all just glued together. So you just put it in the mold in the bucket, and just go away. You put a weight on top of it, and it won't leave.
Vince, what type of weight do you use? Any type of material or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I just gotta make sure.
Or something?
You use a brick. I'll wrap the brick or put the brick in a plastic bag, just so you don't get a brick in your material.
Are the molds reusable?
Yes, absolutely they are. There's stuff you can get called mold release. You can get it at Home Depot. You can get it on Amazon, and it'll say mold release on it. You can actually use. Sometimes I use wax. Beeswax and mineral oil. I'll speak more about that and why I use it in a little while. But if you're just going to pour something in the bucket, you can spray the mold release, put your items in there, put a weight on top of it, put it in your pressure pot vacuum chamber, and you're good to go. I'll talk more about pressure pots and vacuum chambers too. So I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. If I'm speaking too fast, you got a question, just say that, slow down, I got a question. So then there's soft tooling, which is, you can buy the stuff, these kind of things in Rockler, basically your handle lights. And these sort of things. Let me go back one more minute. When you're preparing any sort of mold that you're going to prepare, you want to make sure the wood is free of bark. You want to remove all the bark as soon as possible, because underneath who here has been turning, and all of a sudden a piece of bark hits him in the face? Nobody? Okay. So now just think about if you don't take the bark off, and now you got a few ounces of resin on top of that bark. That's going to come off and hit you in the face. So you just want to remove it and actually scuff that layer up here. Yep. Yeah. Has anyone tried your epoxy molding yet?
Little bit out.
A little bit?
Little bit. Yeah.
Wait, what was your, did you enjoy it? Did you like the results?
Yeah. But I enjoy wood too.
Yeah. But my preference is, I like turning epoxy, but the wood should do the majority of the talking. But yeah, like I said, with epoxy, you can make something out of everything. I'm sure we've all had that piece of wood that's sitting in your house for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Anybody got a piece of wood here that's just sitting in your house for 15 years and you want to use it, but you don't know how to use it?
Oh, yeah. 15.
More than 50? Who's got, okay, we'll make this a problem. Who's got a piece of wood here the longest that they've been sitting on? Who's got 15 years? All right, Steve, you want a prize. There you go, Steve, that's yours. Pass that back to
I
Steve.
could have wanted to 20 years too.
Just pass that back to Steve. So Steve, when you're at South Metro, next meeting, let's see you make something out of that. But that's made with, I call it disposable tooling. But anyway, back to soft tooling. So this is your typical mold you can get from Rockler or Woodcraft. They're great for what they are. It's very fixed purpose. You're going to make a rectangle, but you end up putting your piece of wood in there. You take all the bark off, and you pour your resin in there, and you're good to go. 24 hours later, you've got a handle that you can use, or you can make your own soft tool. Like this here was made with a handle line mold. Then I'll get to this later. But I mean, this mold here, I used to make these two handles. And what these two handles are, if you can believe it, these are cinnamon sticks, and this is bamboo. What? Bamboo. Bamboo is hollow, so I filled the bamboo. Yeah, exactly, big cigar. So I filled the bamboo tubes with different colors, and then I put the colored bamboo tubes inside this mold. So, but you can turn anything with resin. I've turned, everyone's turned pine cones. We've all seen that. We've seen pens, or we've seen pencils being turned. I turned, if you can believe it. And this is a pine cone here inside of a bottle stopper. But I've turned Jesus. I put a little Jesus figure inside of a bottle stopper. Yeah. But this one here, if you can believe it, is water. I encased water inside the resin. Yeah, I put some rocks in there just to make my point with it. So I'll pass these around. Just so you can see them, up close and personal.
Yeah, rock in there, Corey's.
You got a question in the back?
Yes, sir.
Do you have to dry your wood significantly before you do it?
Your
I
wood,
know it should be dry, but man.
12% is all I use. There are different types of epoxy out there, like the total boats. You've got to have like almost 0% dryness to it.
So it's
the-
polyurethane. probably.
Yeah, and the resin I use, it'll tolerate 12%. I even turn 15%. Like this is another soft tool or soft mold that I made for a segmented turner. I had someone make some segments for me, and then I cast the segments in silicone, and then poured resin inside the mold to make this segmented turner. Yeah, it's kind of different. I don't know if I've never seen it done. I haven't sold it yet. I had it for a year, but it's just something different.
So on something like this, I don't know your actual cost, but how much epoxy are you looking at cost-wise to make something like a bottle stopper or?
For the bottle stopper, my total cost, including all the hardware, is well under $5.
Okay,
Yeah, and resin cost. 4 years ago, resin was about $100 a gallon, and now, well, with tariffs, it used to be about $35 a gallon. Now it's closer to $40.
yeah, because I know years ago, we had a club member who said, yeah, I turned this and it cost me $60 in epoxy. And I thought, I'm not interested in that. It's just a little small vase. So it's come way down.
Yeah, incredibly down. It's very affordable.
Do you drop the water by doing it twice, or twice,
Actually, I poured 3 times.
3 times?
That's amazing.
What I did with that one is I cast clear up until I don't know, maybe a ½ inch or so. Then I drilled a hole,
Oh,
and then I poured some water in there with the rocks and put it in the freezer. And then after it froze, I got some UV resin and put a skim coat of UV resin on it to trap the ice, and then poured another layer of epoxy on top of it.
wow.
It's
Some work involved.
a little thought. I watch a lot of YouTube. I probably watch 2 hours of turning videos a day. And there's this gentleman, Ben Works. He's from Australia, and he was trying to, freeze it, get a piece of ice into epoxy. And he's waiting until, the epoxy just about turned when it gets to 105 degrees, and all of a sudden everything exploded on him. He got some cool things on him, but it was not a workable thing. You had a question, Tim? Okay. So that's basically the soft tooling that I have. What I probably do the most of it. I'll set it up. This one was done with a bucket. Yeah. Basically just point out what I've been doing.
Vince, when you turn something like that, do you have a solid block?
Most of the time.
Okay, you don't try to maybe put something there to displace, that you don't have to use as much resin.
Sometimes I do, sometimes. That one I probably didn't because there wasn't a lot, I might have even put a piece of wood in there. But sometimes I do.
So that when you put a little container in the middle so that you don't have that much wasted resin. Okay.
It's always wasted. No, this one wasted a lot of resin, but I'll get to that one. But yeah, so this is yarn. A friend of mine is a crocheter. She's like my market wife. She gave me a bag of scrap yarn to make something out of it. So I made a little bowl for her, to start off with. So this is a little bowl of yarn. Who's calling? Shut up. But then I have a lot of disposable molds, and a lot of times the disposable mold is these are pill bottles. And this is what I use to make all the bottle stoppers with. I sell lots of bottle stoppers. So there are bottle stopper molds that you can buy that are reusable. But this is, for me, it just made more sense. I spent 45 cents on each one of these. And it's already got a hole in there, a divot in the bottom, so I can just drill it out and have 100 of them just waiting to be poured. And a lot of times I use the bottle stoppers with leftover resin.
So when you say disposable, you don't put any release in those at all? And you just start turning and act?
I put it on the drill press, and I drill a 3/8 hole in the bottom for the bottle stopper manual.
And then just turn away the prescription bottle,
No, I actually put it on the bandsaw. I put 2 cups in on the bandsaw and just rip it apart.
break it off.
Yeah, because then then you got plastic against your bottle stopper manual. So disposable. Like I use those pill bottles, but I also use this. And what this is a cake color. From back when I went to culinary school, and you had to make your cake all fancy looking, and they put a cake color on it to make the icing and frosting all the same level. So what I do is I hot melt glue this piece of acetate around a piece of wood, and then I duct tape it. Because you never know when you're gonna, bad things are gonna happen. When resin starts to cure, it heats up. And, well, hot melt glue doesn't like heat. So bad things can happen. I already did a prelude to this one. This was hot melt glued, and it was duct tape, but it also found a way through the duct tape. So, good thing I had it, whatchamacallit, an ounce production. I put a silicone baking pan in the bottom, just in case something absolutely bad happens. And if you think it's not going to happen, it will. When I first started doing it, I just hot melt glued it. Then it leaked. Then I put the duct tape in it. And it leaked. So a lot of times I use that or a garbage bag. So, and worst thing you do is get your resin inside your pressure pot, because it's just a pain in the butt to get out of there. I even had a bucket leak on me. And you would think it's bulletproof, but balance it.
How hot does the epoxy get?
It can get up to 140 degrees.
So enough to actually melt the hot melt.
Yeah. It all depends on where it is too. I'll get into more specifics about the resin in a little bit though, because that's another section of what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
But it does get hot, and it can get really hot. It can smoke. So,
Could you move your microphone back up?
that better?
Yeah.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. That's perfect. So for disposal stuff, so you saw the Mylar stuff. This was a bowling pin that we got from one of the guys at South Metro. And when I started turning it, there was a piece hit me off. A piece flew off and hit me in the face. And then I looked closer at it, and there was a bullet in it. It was a 9mm. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. So I took some of the Mylar and made a quick little form around it just to capture the bullet in there, and pour some clear resin so we all can see it. It'll be there forever. This was just a neat little find. I can pass that. But that's a bowling pin. Bowling pins are hollow. I don't know if everyone knew that. Yeah, there's a little bit of structure inside, but they're really hollow. Um, so to make your disposal bowls, I mean, this is just a piece of wood that I prepped. I made it round because round is always easier to do. So I would end up taking my cake collar. And how about laying on to whatever size I would want. Yeah. And then I would duct tape it together.
Where do you get that stuff from?
Amazon. Amazon.
What is it, mylar? Did you
Acetate.
acetate?
Mhm.
Acetate.
Acetate. It's a little cake collar, do the same thing.
Right.
So I just went ahead and made one for us all to look at. I think this is a piece of maple here, but I've got it set up. I've got a tenometer ready, so I can put it right on the lathe and start turning it once there's resin. The resin's hard. But I guess the first question you're going to ask is, well, how much resin do I need? Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know either at this point. But let's find out. What I used to figure out how much resin you need is I use rice. Well, no. I'll just take this out. So it's rice. So I just pour the rice in there and look at where it is. Well, is that how high I want it to be? You know, the wood goes in there maybe a half an inch. I don't know. I think a lot more. So this cup measures 9 ounces. So if I go further down, so that's got, what's that for 9? So that's got 13 and a half ounces of rice in it. So if we put 13 and a half ounces of rice in there, epoxy resin, it will be far short. It'll be not as tall as what it says. So what you have to end up doing is add 10% more to account for all the air spaces that are in between the rice. So that would bring it into 14 and a half ounces. And then there's the black magic that you got to figure out, and I don't even know. I just keep on adding more because some of the resin is going to seep into the wood. The resin going to eat into the wood a little bit. So maybe another 10%, but if you put box elder or Ohio buckeye, anyone here turn stuff that wasn't really, really dry, doesn't have all sorts of holes in it? I mean, it's just, you got to add even more. And the more end grain you have, the more you got to add because, everything seeps into the end grain. So for this one here, I've got planning to put in 16 ounces of resin in there. There. So that would be, how much would that be? $6 worth of resin to put it in there. $6 or $7 in resin. Just to add to your costs. Everything has a cost, unfortunately. But I'm going to pour a little resin for you guys. This is a Chinese food soup container. And I already went through it and measured out that this is going to take 9 ounces of resin. This is hot melt glued down, so it won't come out. It shouldn't come out. But this is. I'm going to put this in the. I guess you don't have a raffle. You don't have a raffle? Okay. I'll put this in the raffle.
Are you gonna do a pour down there?
I put a piece of cardboard.
No, I need to move the camera if you're gonna do it down there.
I can move it. No, I'll move this over there.
No, I don't mind. I just want to make sure where you're at.
Can you see it there?
No.
Well, I'll just take this off. How about that?
the overhead there should get.
There.
That'll get it right there. See where you're at? Perfect.
So this resin uses 1:1, and it is it's supposedly good. It's really only supposed to be good for a height of a quarter of an inch, and I found that that's really not the case. What it really wants to do is, can I explain this easily? The distance between the outside of the container and the wood is really the height that it's concerned about. The more volume you have of resin itself is the concern. I could have something that's a ½ inch wide and 10 inches long, and it's still okay when the resin is lengthened for a quarter inch. There's another resin that's good for a pour of 2 inches or 4 inches, and it's the same thing. It's looking for the amount of space between items, so it can use it as a heat sink. So, if I can measure this is a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning there's equal parts by volume. There's some that uses a 2-to-1 and a 4-to-1, and a lot of times the 2-to-1 and 4-to-1 is for deeper pours. Because what happens is, anyway, when your resin heats up, when your resin starts to cure, it heats up.
Where do you get that resin?
I get all my resin on Amazon.
Amazon?
Mm-hmm. I buy everything on Amazon. There's nothing I really buy that is, I go to a big box store.
Is there a hazardous material fee for that?
Not that I know of. It's low VOC. So I think this is a yogurt container, maybe cottage cheese container, nothing to mix it in. I don't particularly like mixing this small amount of resin. I like mixing a lot more because you can be a lot more. It's a lot more forgiving when you're mixing it. The mixing techniques that I use, I kind of just developed over a couple of years because everyone's concerned about bubbles. You know, I was at I do markets every weekend, and there are some guys there that are like, "What resin do you use?" I'm like, "Oh, I use Nip Pro and B resin and try something or other, Mr. Epoxy." And they're like, "I've never heard of those." I'm like, "Well, they're the cheapest around. Probably have them." And they're like, "Does it make bubbles?" And I told them, "No. My resin doesn't make bubbles. You make bubbles. The resin doesn't care." See how it looks in here? So they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you're mixing too fast. You're not doing it right." So how I'm mixing is I'm really keeping my mixing towards the center. Yeah, it's back this way. And why I'm doing that is if you want to look real quick, if I flip it on the side or turn it on the side, the weight that's created by my stirring stick goes deeper. And the deeper it goes, the more air it's going to catch and trap down below. So if I'm only stirring in the center, the air doesn't have a chance to go deep into it. But you still have to scrape the sides. You just want to go slowly.
epoxy, right?
Yes, this is epoxy.
Have you had any trouble with it over time yellowing?
Actually, this is a piece that I have all times capacity. It's a raspberry, and it's been in my window for 3 years, and it turned yellow. All resin's gonna turn yellow over time.
All epoxy.
All epoxies. And that's you learn things over time about what to do and what not to do. Very rarely do I use anything that doesn't have a color in it. Because if you're putting, is this going to yellow in 5 years? Probably. We'll never know.
Would this be like twice poured, you pour one level, let it, then put it
Yeah,
dry
yeah.
on?
And the only reason I did that is so it had a proper place for it to sit onto.
Right. And there's no issues with separation between the two with one?
Yeah, you have to, for the most part, no. But you want to have a good tooth for the next layer of resin to bond to. So you set it to 120, 180 grit, you should have no problem. And you won't even see it.
Okay.
So you want to continue to mix it until it's one homogeneous mixture. You won't see any lines in there. Well, I've got some, who knows what that, there's some dirt in there for whatever reason that is. But it takes, this resin will sit there. If I don't stir it up, it won't get hot until about 30 minutes until I get ready to pour it. But you should never mix your resin until you have all your molds set. Cooking term is called mise en place. Everything in its place. Don't go in and say, oh, I'll mix this and then I'll just organize my mold. No, don't do it, because you'll forget and it'll just go hard on you. So at this point, this is optional. I have it, I might as well use it. This is a vacuum chamber, and what it does is it pulls the vacuum, of course, but it pulls out all the air that's inside the resin. It gets rid of it. I'll just turn it on. If you guys want to come up and see it, the air getting pulled off of it, you're more than welcome to. I think this is a 2-stage pump. I got it, I don't know how many years ago. But for a long time, I never used it. But it's sitting in my workshop upstairs, right where I mix my resin, doing nothing. Well, I just put it to use. That's it. You don't have to do it. You don't use it. It's an optional step, but it can't hurt if it's just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, the bubbles are starting to come out a little bit now. But that will also, with all the bubbles coming out of it, it's actually mixing the resin a little more. And the more you mix it, the faster your reaction is going to happen. It may take your 10 minutes off of your set time, your working time. Excuse me. Okay. You're confused, Tim. You all right? No. Okay. So, it's that 20 millimeters of mercury, so it's not in a full vacuum yet. It'll probably fill about 28 millimeters of mercury on it.
So the vacuum system, it'll bring the bubbles to the surface,
Yes.
where the pressure pot just makes it smaller.
Yes.
The
Absolutely.
pressure pot will absorb it for that procedure.
Well, it all depends on how many bubbles you have. And a pressure pot is overrated for what people, I've heard people say, your pressure pot, it just shrinks your bubbles down to, an immeasurable size. No, it doesn't. Back in my engineering days, I took thermodynamics, and at the time we called it thermodynamics. Um, and there was something that we used to figure out what the size of your bubble were, and it was called Boyle's Law. And Boyle's Law states that when you double the pressure of something, your volume decreases by half. So if you pull out the math, so if your bubble size is 1 inch, like the end of this tube, at 32 psi, which is on the lower end of what a pressure pot can do, 32 psi is 1 atmosphere. It reduces your bubble size by 29%. If you take your pressure pot up to 60 psi, it reduces it by 41%. So in relative terms, that's the difference in bubble size. It's really not that much. But something is better than nothing.
I think the assumption is that you don't start with bubbles that are into diameter.
Very true. I mean, it's I couldn't make a bubble. I couldn't turn a piece of wood that was the 16th of an inch and then roll up by 41%. You could. You're a pro. We know that.
Do you ever use heat gun?
I not often. What I end up using the heat gun for is when I put my logo on the bottom, because we don't really share. If there's bubbles on the surface, you're going to turn them away anyway. I don't know if you've watched the videos of, you have these little flat bowls. They're always concerned about their heat. There's heating mats, and they pop all the bubbles around the surface. And and they're all concerned about that and being clear and translucent. For the most part, we're turners. We don't, if we make a mold and there's bubbles on the surface, it doesn't matter. And for a lot of times, if there's bubbles inside it doesn't really matter that much either. Because more than likely, you're not going to see it.
We'd also, at least in my experience, to make it efficient, the heat will thin as well.
Yes, it will.
So you'll have a different viscosity between the top and the just under that hasn't heated up.
But it will get there eventually. It will even out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually heat up your resin before you start mixing stuff. You mix it together and then you put it in the microwave for 8 seconds, and it accelerates your time tremendously. But I've got time. I have problems sleeping, so most of my molding that I do, I probably mold every day, is at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why I'm not married now with kids. Who knows? So.
At what point would you put, if you were going to color that, put a dye in with it, be it a liquid or a powdered dye, at what point did you go ahead and put that in? Prior to going into the vacuum chamber?
You can do it either way. Either way. I like doing it afterwards. Because the only reason why is there's a larger volume of epoxy to cure, and it takes a faster amount of time. So the more resin you have mixing, the faster it's going to take. So if you have a little, half-ounce Dixie cup in there, it's going to take a really long time for it to get to a proper temperature. And a proper temperature, I mean, is when I only run for one color. But if you want to have color separation, I don't even have anything with multiple colors. Well, let's just say this one this one actually does have multiple. It's got red and white in there. I would actually, for this one specifically, I put all of it in the vacuum chamber to remove all the air, and then waited for it to get the temperature. And then I took a Dixie cup, poured a little bit of resin in there, and poured white. I used a white mica powder, and then the rest of it was a red dye. And there are actually a little bit of red mica powder in there also, just for a little wispiness of it. But you can also, if you really wanted to, you could set your mold up, and then put your color in your resin. Put your wood and the resin in the vacuum chamber, and it will do the same thing. It will pull air out of the wood, pull air out of the resin. It doesn't do it because most of the time your working time is not long enough for it to penetrate deeply. And this resin is too thick. The viscosity is too high on it. But the 4-inch epoxy, the 4-inch pour epoxies are almost like a water-like consistency, and they'll penetrate a little deeper into it. So this is there's still a little bit of air in there. Not that big a deal. But this is mica powder. I probably have 10 different shades of blue because everyone likes blue. And how much mica powder you put in there is up to your discretion. If you want it to be translucent, to be able to see through, you don't have to put a lot in it. If you want it to have be opaque, put even more on into it. I like it opaque because when the resin starts to heat up, it creates these thermal currents. Does everyone know what mica powder is? Mica powder is actually stones that they pulverize into dust, and then they dye the dust. So when you put the mica powder in there, it just blends with the epoxy resin. But what also happens when your resin starts to cure, it creates these thermal currents, and that makes all the wispiness and all the little fun patterns. Like if you see, like this one here, if you can see how it flows against the waves and all flow against the wood, and close to the wood, there's really not any sort of color to it, but there's all this little wispiness to it. Can you guys see that? Yeah, I'll just pass it around. So make life easy.
So basically, you're adding the color back and you're stirring it and then you're putting more air back in?
Yes, I am. But the amount of time, the amount of stirring that you're putting in here is not as much.
You know, put it back in the thing and hit it again?
I could.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I wouldn't. This is just one color. I mean, I could actually mix it up, put the color in it, and then put everything inside the container. Because most of the time, you're adding multiple colors. And if you put it back into the vacuum chamber, everything's going to get mixed up together. Look at that.
Tim, switch in here so you can't see it.
If you look at it, there's bubbles coming off it. That's air escaping from the wood. See those big old bubbles? Mm-hmm. But I will leave this here. I'll put it in the raffle. I've got it. By the time we go home, it'll be starting to set.
Still alive.
Excuse me?
It's alive.
It is alive. I'm going to keep this top pop just a little bit. I don't know. I've never put a top on it before. So it's going to get hot, so maybe that thing will just pop
As long
off.
as they don't blow off.
That's right. Well, that's why it does pop the top a little bit. Yeah. So a couple of people questioned me about this piece. And basically, this piece is garbage. There's just random bits of wood from every little bowl that I've made. I mean, there's some maple, there's some Osage orange, there's some box elder, I see some walnut. You know, who knows what's in this thing? There are tons and tons of different layers in there. So for this item, I have a, actually, what is that? Ice cream container. I put all this wood in the ice cream container, and when I'm finished pouring, there's just a little bit of resin left in there. Where, see, there's just a little, so there's just that little bit of resin. So I just pour that into my dump bowl. And it ends up looking like this when everything is done. You know, I mean, there's layers and layers in here. I mean, it probably takes me 2 months or so to get this filled. People seem to love it. I hate it. But, you know, if someone's going to buy from me, I'll sell it to them, you know. They think I did so much to make that. It's like, how'd you place all those pieces in there? And that's taking you forever. Well, not really.
Yeah. Makes
No, it
it
took,
twice
yeah,
as much.
it took a long time to do that. A lot of planning, but yeah.
On the bottom of a lot of bowls, like that one in particular, I of course have the price tag on it. And I also put a sticker on there that says, want to hear a story about this bowl? Yeah, sometimes I ask, sometimes I don't. And I tell them the whole story about it. Yeah, it just opens a conversation with them. Oh, I forgot to talk about this one. So, every once in a while, you're going to start turning, and you get deep into it, and you're like, oh my goodness, look at all these bark inclusions. Look at all these voids. How do I fix that?
Or is it?
Exactly. But how do you make a mold for it at that point? That's the what you end up facing. Because now you're halfway around, you don't have a container for it. You could pour it, pour it in a bucket, where it's going to be, squarish or roundish at the bottom. But then you're wasting all this resin in there. And that's just, not a good thing. So what I end up doing for that is I get a 5-gallon bucket and rice. And I double bag my piece of wood. I put the wood inside 2 plastic bags and then push it inside the rice. So the rice forms to the outside of my container. Is the outside of the container. It's all rough and nasty looking, but you're not going to waste anything. You're still going to waste some, but you're not going to be wasting as much. It doesn't happen often, but it does. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. You can see all the wrinkles and stuff from the bag.
That's all because of leftover resin.
Excuse me, sir?
I saw your leftover resin.
No, that's actually usable.
Yes, yeah. The other one was the old.
Yeah.
And this one is.
Yeah, this was the leftover resin.
Yeah.
So more of it now.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The one you just made, you wouldn't put that in the vacuum pot, take the pressure out and let it sit in there like that once it.
That one I could, if I really wanted to. The problem that arises, if you only have one color, yeah, you can absolutely do that. But if you have multiple colors, it's gonna, you're gonna be moving the air out of it, and the air is gonna mix it. So it's gonna start swirling around there until that color separation that you want to achieve is no longer there anymore. So color separation. When you're mixing your resin, you have the you're gonna have a thermometer, the infrared thermometer, and it's gonna start off at room temperature, and it's slowly gonna go up, and you'll be staring, you're gonna be watching. 82 degrees, 83 degrees. It's being taken forever. When it hits 95 degrees, that's when you want to separate all your resin out into different colors. Because it's starting to go off and you have time. You don't have, 20 minutes, but you've got 5 to 10 minutes to do your business and start pouring. And when it gets to 95 degrees or so, and you start mixing them all together, your colors are going to be, they're going to separate. And they're going to start swirl a little bit. You're going to have great color separation. I don't even have anything here like that. Like, this is a piece from another demo. If you look at it here, it's orange and blue. They start mixing a little bit here and there. So, and that's what you're really kind of looking for. Is have the multiple colors in there, just separating each other out. Any questions so far?
Since you use a lot of different brands of resin over time, you find that the temperatures remain relatively close between the different resins?
Mean when they start to go off?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I keep them the same. 95 degrees is when I'm starting to pour. I mean, do other resins go off at 100 degrees? I don't know. It could.
Well, it's all constant to begin with, so it should react.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I've read, there are not too many companies that make epoxy resin. And everyone just private labels it.
How do you check the temperature?
Infrared thermometer?
So laser?
Yeah.
Humidity affects it too. But humidity affects it too. I was living in South Florida, and when I definitely knew the difference between a humid day and a non-humid day. It's especially apparent when I moved up here. Used resin for the first time. It was drastically different. Like, it caught me off guard. It went off a lot quicker here. And, 98%.
So humidity makes it set.
Slower.
Slower. Drier the faster.
The temperature you start with, if you're in a room that's cold, you're gonna have to account for that. If you're outside, it's hot summer, it's gonna go off much faster.
Right, and physics wise, typically the colder the room is, the less humidity it is. Typically.
Less what?
Humidity.
Right.
Yeah. But I put my resin in the microwave sometimes.
Yeah, so you bypass all that.
But yeah, exactly. It speeds up the process like 10 minutes. All right. So I think I'm done with trying to explain how to make molds. You guys have any questions on how, what I've done to make molds?
Have you ever used, 3M makes a tape that you use on a wall?
Oh, Sherlock tape?
Yeah.
I have used it. It's expensive.
It's expensive, but does it work any better?
No.
Okay.
Well, he was asking about 3M Sherlock tape, what they use for thermal insulation. They're attached them together. I actually do use that when I make
Make your own mold?
when I made this. I use it because resin or silicone resin don't stick to it.
Yes.
But for what I'm doing, duct tape, cheap enough. It's like 5 cents a foot. If that. Good.
Conrad, when I've done the resins, I have to be very patient. And when I'm cutting, so that it doesn't start chips off on it. Have you found a way to increase that, make it quicker, or
Well,
do you
I'll get-
always be patient?
Oh, you only be patient. I mean, depends on where you are in your product. If you do the other product, I don't care about the finish. Chip out as much as you want. Well, a lot of times when I'm hauling, going through the belly of the bowl, I'll use those little 9mm carbide ones that will take off a lot of material, but they're surface finishing. So I don't care what the surface finish is. When it gets to a 1/4 inch of where I need to be, I'll start thinking about it.
But don't they say it's better to use carbide on resins? I mean, I think that's some of the stuff I read.
Carbide is a lot easier. Is it better? If you're a good turner, you got to be riding that bevel. You got to be using that slicing cut. it'll be fine. You know, but as soon as you come off that bevel, I mean, I'll show you here in a minute. What happens? Because it's just, you know, it's, you know, chip out, you know, people think it's bubbles inside there, but no, it's just, you know, chip out is just the same thing as the air out when you're on. You know, you're just not riding that bevel right. Yeah, I mean, there are, well, I mean, I have sectioned this off into three pieces, you know. I've got carbide cutters, I've got negative rate carbide cutters, and traditional tooling. Yeah, and I'll show you the difference between all three of them. You know, then there, you know, the carbide, yeah, is good. Or the negative rate carbide is good, but you know, if you got traditional tooling, riding that bevel right, you get a great surface finish. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If you treat it like you're doing an interrupted cut,
Uh-huh.
and you're just guiding the tool as opposed to pushing it through the epoxy, if it chips a little bit in the first instant, it doesn't run on you. In other words, when you're putting too much pressure against it, I've found it like pen wipes.
Mhm.
If you're putting a bunch of pressure against that cut, one little chip, next, you
Yeah. Resin doesn't
lunge
like.
forward and it hits the epoxy and a bigger chip and a bigger chip, and pretty soon it
Yeah.
shatters. Whereas if you treat it like you're doing a cut like with voids or something, you just guide it so that if a chip comes out, you don't lurch through the next one. It turns a lot.
Resin doesn't like a lot to be taken off at one time, and that's probably what, you know, the crux of what you're trying to say is. Yeah.
Ideal speeds.
I go as fast as possible.
Okay.
I mean, like this piece here, you know, when it gets closer to round, I'll be spinning at 2,500, 3,000. You know. There, you want to see some turning?
Yes.
All right. One important thing. Always wear lung protection. Resin is horrible on your lungs. Mica powder can be worse because some of the glitter in mica powder gets suspended in the air and you be floating around. And you know, I try not to use those. You know, I got this one glitter gold one that I just don't use because I don't want to deal with it anymore. But always wear lung protection. Most important thing, whether you're turning for 30 seconds or 3 hours. You know, I mean, I wear a mask more now than in the heart of COVID. You know, I hated wearing a mask, just like everybody else did. But so I can't. See too much. I can't talk and turn at the same time, but I will. Can you hear me now? Get when I'm underneath. Okay. I will. I'll put this back on when I get done with it. We can talk more. So the first one I'm going to do is the first section is just regular carbide. It's just straight carbide, freshly sharpened. You can sharpen carbide tips. You can't sharpen negative carbide, negative rate carbides. I haven't figured out a way to do it. But I mean, to sharpen these, I mean, just unscrew it off. You put some lapping fluid onto a CBN card, swirl it around, 15, 20 seconds. You'll see some grayish black schmutz dust being suspended in the lapping fluid, and you're sharp. So it doesn't take much to sharpen. But anyway, let's get to turning this going on. So a carbide tool is basically a scraper. You want to make sure that your cutting surface is at the center line or just above. We are just above there. Yeah, that's the bill's 1900.
We can go any speed you want, we'll change the belt.
Yeah.
We want to,
Change it. It's that fast, so I will. So right now we're trying at 2700. So it's not a bad cut, but let me go down a little deeper. We'll get some more wood exposed. It's all right. We can do better though. So does everyone have tried carbide tooling? So carbide tips, there's basically 4 tips. You got square, round, diamond shape, and what's the other one?
Radius.
What's that?
Radius.
Radius. Yes. So, but I mean, all the those 4 tools can do can trade in a lot of your traditional tooling. I mean, there's some stuff that I always use carbide on, regardless of what I'm doing. Making a recess in the bottom of the bowl for always use carbide. It's just so much easier. Just get it done. We'll use carbide on this middle section. And I'll pass this around and, you know, when I finish the other one, the next one. But you can see there's a little bit of tear out in the traditional carbide tip. The negative rake one on the wood is just a little bit better. The last one we got, I'm using a bowl gouge. I'll do the last one. A little bit of tear out, but I mean, I think it's a better surface finish than on the other ones. But you can, I mean, you absolutely can turn. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
No, but you have, I mean, if you really want to turn with traditional tooling, you can. I said, it's not the, it's a little more fickle. If you're not riding that bevel, it's gonna chip out on you. I started off, I was a carbide turner for a long time. And I am trying to break a lot of my old habits of doing carbide turning. What I do now, if it's mostly, if it's all wood, you know, the only thing I use carbide tips is making the recess or tenon. But other than that, I use traditional tooling. Like I said, sometimes it's just easier, but you're always going to get better finish with traditional tooling. I did Mark Soleil a resin blank. You know, he did his standard, you know, hollow form with the finial. You know, and Mark Soleil just does great work. Whatever he does. Any questions on the turn portion of it? You guys,
Good example there.
you see the difference in it. You know. Like I said, you if you want to use traditional tooling, you can. Yeah. How you lock this thing?
That one?
And then we use a spanner wrench to take off the chucks.
Works pretty good.
Take a little tool. And when that doesn't work, you know, you got the big guns. Any questions?
Are you gonna talk about the finishing tomorrow?
Finishing, you know, you could really use whatever you wanted to. Yeah. I use water locks a lot. Love it. But I also use shine juice. Yeah. And sometimes I even use a CA finish. Yeah, a CA finish is a little harder. Resin doesn't like to stick to CA. So, I mean, you need to put a seal coat on it. Yeah. So it's just a little bottle stopper blank. Use those pill bottles just to, I put some CA glue on the bottom of it because there's a piece of wood in the bottom. One important thing, very, very important, actually. When you're designing your mold, you want to make sure that you have wood to attach to. Unless you're using glue block, but even still, the connection you make with epoxy resin on the chuck is not the greatest in the world. If you get a catch, it's going to get destroyed. You want to make sure you got wood, and wood is just so much better to use for that portion of it. Additionally, if you may want to think about having wood connections on the top and bottom of your mold. If you're making a bowl, if the intention is you're going to make a bowl, all right, I'm going to put wood in the bottom of my mold, and whatever happens, happens. But if you're making a hollow form, what you think is going to be the bottom may not be the bottom. You may want to have the top be the bottom, and just look around. So you still want to have that wood connection on both sides. I know Steve does a lot of hollow forms. Anybody else do a lot of hollow forms? And they want to, yeah. So you may want to think about, this piece right here. I mean, I doubt I'm going to do it, but I mean, right now I have this intended to be the bottom. I may get it round and figure out, I want to have it the other way. Yeah, it could happen, Also, and this is purely unintentional. Hans Meyer, we all know Hans. I tutored him a little bit in how to make resin, and he made a bowl, and the bottom wall thickness of his bowl was a lot. It was probably well over an inch, and because when he made this thing, is that working? Yeah. Because when he made his mold, he didn't glue down he didn't glue down or put a weight on the wood, so it just rose to the top. So instead of just flipping it around and having the top be the bottom, he just decided to thick wall thickness on it. So, like I said, accidents happen. You just gotta roll with them. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had molds explode on me. Or you get to the point where okay, let me see what I can do here. Who was it? Bob Ross. Happy accidents. So anyway, so this is just a little bottle stopper blank. It's got a little wood base to it. Lots of different, how many colors in there? 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors in it. So let's see what it ends up looking like. Ooh. Isn't that a pretty sight? Seeing all those resin shades go flying straight up in the air. Sometimes things are, who here you watches YouTube and sees all those, even wood going straight up in the air? I'm like, yeah, that's nice. So that's what the bottle stopper is, you know, looking like now. And this is a pretty crappy finish. Bad tooling on my part, or cutting on my part. But we'll start at 180 grit. Does anybody want a dust mask? I have extra. I know everyone is so excited to watch me sand.
You get there 3 or 4 times boring.
Yeah, I have whole days dedicated just to bottle stoppers. The more you change, the more times you change the tool, the faster your production, the slower your production is.
How far did you send?
I sand to 600. For the bottle stoppers, you know, there's just a quick sell item, you know. I try not to put a lot of effort into it. Is it a great finish? No. Is it good enough? Yeah. For a $30 item, I'm not spending a lot of time into them. I could probably knock each one off in about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So, this is just a little denatured alcohol. just to get rid of the dust. It's probably everyone's favorite thing, watching that color pop. This is a DIY shellac sanding sealer. It's 50% shellac, 50% denatured alcohol. I try and burnish the sanding sealer on there. What's time now? What time's the meeting over? Oh, okay. Okay, we're staying up 10 o'clock tonight. We're having a slumber party.
Turn out the lights when we get up.
Okay. So, everyone here use sanding paste?
Yeah,
Do you make your own?
yeah.
It's yeah, if you buy it, it's expensive to buy. You know, if you can go with half a dozen people and buy 5 pounds. So this sanding paste is denatured alcohol, beeswax, and diatomaceous earth. It is 1 part denatured alcohol, or excuse me. Yeah, it's 1 part denatured alcohol to 1 part of diatomaceous earth to 4 parts beeswax. And you can play around with those things, but if you buy 5 pounds of diatomaceous earth and split it between 5 people, you got enough for a lifetime. I mean, I you know, I make it all the time. I make it by the quart. You know, it probably lasts me about 4 or 5 months. I still have enough for a lifetime. There are 2 different kinds of diatomaceous earth. One is the food grade, and one is non-food grade. The non-food grade version has a lot of silica in it, and it goes through. It has a grade of about 1,000. The food grade version, which is what this is has a grade of about 1,500. So you just put it on. You work it in there. One of my first jobs out of college, I worked for a company called Tetra Second Nature. I was on the design team, and then we made a diatomaceous earth filter. It was expensive. It worked really well. No one bought it. I have. Let's see, when was that? 1994. I still have diatomaceous earth left over from that. I filtered a pond with it, but diatomaceous earth. The tagline for the product was "It polishes the water." Like I said, it was a great product. You know, diatomaceous earth is used in cosmetics. Everyone else, I mean, there's other stuff that's used. I'm sure most of you have used diatomaceous earth and didn't know it.
It kills bugs.
It does kill bugs, exactly. But in the turning world, do you know what diatomaceous earth is used in?
That right there.
One other thing. Diatomaceous earth is the polishing compound in Tripoli. So, 30 years later, you know, the tagline is "It polishes the water." Well, it's polishing my stuff here. So that's just, you know, just polished. This is Shine Juice. Captain Eddie's version. It's equal parts shellac, denatured alcohol, and boiled linseed oil. Build up a little heat. So. So I mean, Shine Juice is a good finish, but at this point, it's still a little soft. It'll take a fingerprint. Okay, so this is, it's got some nice blues, some reds, some yellows, some golds and whites. Toss that around. All right. Well, that's my presentation. If you guys got any questions, I'll be here till 10 o'clock. I gotta shut the lights off.
Thank you.
Thank God.